Welcome back to the Getting Dressed podcast. I am Anthony Bolognese.
And I'm Leah Nalepa.
And today we are talking about the difference between fashion and style. As far as I see it, fashion is the clothes you buy, style is how you wear them. But that is the painfully elevator-pitched version of it. How do you feel about the difference between the two, Leah?
I actually really love that definition, but I'm going to elaborate just a bit more. So,
I mean, it is a podcast. I'd be kind of criminal if we didn't.
Podcast done. So I think a lot of people think that fashion and style are synonymous with each other, which is not anyone's fault because we're not taught that there's a difference, but there is a difference and it's pretty stark. So fashion is a multi-billion-dollar industry rooted in our ability or inability to keep up with changing trends, changing body types and styles and models, and changing costs. So at any given year, there are upwards of over 20 trends for women, and I believe it's 12 to 15 trends for men. And so it can become really exhausting to keep up with that changing stuff, right? And this is coming from someone who really loves fashion industry. I have no problem with it, but I think it's really important to separate our emotions from the fact that the industry is trying to get billions of dollars from the American consumer. Okay, so it's an industry. Style, on the other hand, is very personal. It's exactly what you said. It's what we wear in order to reflect who we are at our core, right? Our values, how we want to identify, how, like, the messages, the nonverbal messages we want to send to the world about who we are in our innermost being without even talking. And so Clinton Kelly said this really wonderful thing about the difference between fashion and style is fashion is the buffet and style is what you put on your plate. So we live in this beautiful time where almost anything, honestly, from the past 50 to 60 years, honestly, is in, quote unquote, in style. So you can go back to the 1960s and say, like, wow, that jacket is so cool. I'm going to pull that and put it in my closet. And then you can fast forward to the 1980s and 90s and say, like, oh, I'm feeling a little grunge, a little edge in my look, leaning more into that, like, male style. Like, I'm pulling that and putting that in my closet. And then we fast forward to modern day trends where it's like, hey, some old is back in and some new is new. And so I want to pull some of that and put it into my closet. And you can make this really beautiful, fully built out wardrobe that is a complete reflection of who you are versus what anyone else is. And nothing drives me more crazy when people say that they have their own personal style, but all they're doing is trying to keep up with trends. And I disagree that that is their style because trends are always changing.
Yep.
And that is not a reflection of anyone. It's a reflection of one singular industry that wants you to buy from it. So
Something that I love to think about when I hear, actually, you know what? I don't know if I even love it. I think it's actually annoying. So I'm going to completely 180 on what I was just thinking. It always makes me think a little bit deeper when I hear someone say that someone is fashionable versus when I hear that someone is stylish or has good style. When I hear that someone is fashionable, that to me reads as you are trendy.
Right.
You are dressing in the current fashion.
I completely agree
Versus
with that.
someone with style, that reads as a little bit more, you have timeless style. It is effortless. That is who you are. It is what you are. And it shows. So
Yeah.
I definitely have, I don't know if you meant to say this quite in the way that you did, but I definitely have issues with the fashion industry. I love that we have a fashion industry, but I think that it is so incredibly corrupted, just like a lot of other things. I'm a born and bred capitalist, never going to back down from that. But there's a difference between ethical capitalism and unethical capitalism.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of the ways that fashion has gone is severely unethical. We've talked previously about fast fashion and how, and how unsustainable that is, and how much money is behind it to make people want it. Brands like Express, J. Crew, H&M, like all these brands that sell $5 t-shirts that are going in a landfill and being sewn by people who are making pennies in Malaysia or something like that. There's a lot of gripes that I have with the fashion industry, and style as a word just doesn't equate to any of that. Fashion, like you said, is the buffet, all the things that are available, and style is what you decide to buy. We talked in the first episode about personal style and personal brand, kind of the two equally miscommunicated phrases. How do you feel that fashion pertains to your personal brand as far as the bell curve of what you see versus what you buy versus what you regret?
So I don't know that fashion does pertain to our personal brand. Because it is not meant to, if that makes sense. We're all different, we're all unique, and to your point, I also have some gripes with the fashion industry where it's actually not, maybe as of recently, it has only become somewhat more inclusive, like inclusive to body types, inclusive to skin tones, inclusive to whether someone has acne or not. And, previously, as of only a couple years ago, we're looking at these stick-thin, white 6'2" models, right? And we're all supposed to somehow attain that. And obviously, most of us never will, and that's okay. But when it comes to our personal brand, for the longest time, fashion has not been representative of that. And so I actually think, going back to what I said earlier, is we can still love the trends that are coming out and think like, hey, this trend, from February, for spring 2022, isn't necessarily something that is going to look good on my body type, but I like it for this model or for this friend that I have. But hey, this summer 2022 style is coming out, and I really like that. It's going to look awesome on my body type. I love, some bolder colors. So, and this is bold. So I'm going to pull that and put that into my closet. So I think when it comes to personal brand, we should think through like, what do we really like, and what speaks to us most about a particular piece that's quote unquote fashionable right now versus what's just on trend and you're going to pull it because it's like $25 at Zara. Does that make sense? Does that kind of answer the question that you were asking?
I think you also pulled a similar 180 that I did, except you didn't know it.
What did I say?
Because in the beginning you said that fashion has no bearing on that. But I think that the fact that there are fashion trends opens people's eyes to things that potentially do embody their personal style. And without those trends, you wouldn't get to find those new pieces. Those new silhouettes wouldn't exist. Those new, colorways wouldn't come into being. And you wouldn't have new things that resonate with you.
That is true. I guess I was a little bit more extreme because I don't want people getting caught up on the fact that style is rooted in the fashion industry. Like there are definitely beautiful elements that are necessary from the fashion industry to pull into our style, but it's not one and the same, if that makes sense. Yeah. And it'll be a part of our personal brand, but it will not define our style. Mm-hmm.
So we've talked, I think a common thread throughout this whole, podcast, as long as it goes, we're going to be talking about our personal gripes and faux pas and pet peeves and stuff like that. What are some parts of the fashion industry that you love and actively hate? As far as the fashion that is being put out there, not necessarily the ethics behind it.
Yeah. So what I really love is that I think there are elements of the fashion industry that can be absolutely beautiful. Honestly, some dresses that models wear down the runway, I'm like, that is stunning. Like, it's so unique that I would never in a million years wear it, but it is beautiful as a concept because to me, so much of fashion is almost art. I mean, it is art, quite frankly. Like, just because you're not painting doesn't mean it's not art. The colors, the concepts, even like the symmetry of how something lays on a body is absolutely stunning to me. And so there are a lot of elements from that perspective that I see it as art and beauty, and it captures so much more depth of not only a person who's wearing it, but also the person who conceived of that idea. It's like, wow, this is actually showing some of their soul and the ideas and beauty behind who they are. So I think that is really neat. I mean, there's a lot of things that I am unfortunately not too happy about with the fashion industry, but I would say the biggest one, honestly, is sizing. Especially for women, but men are part of this too, is that we root so much of our personal identity in the size that we are. And at the end of the day, there are a couple things that we should be highly and acutely aware of when it comes to like fashion and sizing. Is one, it's computer programmed, and it takes an aggregate of a bunch of different sizes and inputs them into this computer and spits out a randomly generated number. And it's like, oh, that's a size 8. And then all of us are just like sobbing over the fact that we're a size 8 or 14 or smaller or bigger. And it's like, really? Like that's what the computer told us we were. And then the other thing, I was actually speaking with a woman who used to work in fashion houses in New York back in like the 70s. And she was like, if there was a size that wasn't selling, we would literally pull a tag off of like a 2 or a 4 and put it on the larger size because women were so concerned that they were like gaining a pound or 5 that they wouldn't buy the size up.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, guess what? The dress sold after we put that tag on there.
Yeah.
And so sizing is a huge thing that I am just antithetical to when it comes to the fashion industry. And I mean, the thing is, like, we all get caught up in it. I get caught up in it. I mean, there are days where I'm just like, man, I didn't realize that was the size, and it is what it is. But I think, sorry, this last thing, the last thing that you should be aware of is that we're all size range. We're not 1 or 2 sizes, and that every brand fits bodies differently. And so, honest to God, I'm a little bit smaller of a person. I'm 5'3", weigh 130 pounds. So generally I'm in like a 2 to an 8, honestly, is my range. But I also have worn, I literally just ordered tank tops that are an extra small because they run large. But I have shirts in my closet that are literally a large from H&M because that is a brand that runs so small. So I think we should really be acutely aware of what that range looks like for us as well.
Definitely. And honestly, the women's sizing range is way, way more wild and unpredictable than the men's stuff, generally speaking. And I think in a more traditional sense, men's clothing is pretty true to the inch measurement. But even that nowadays is skewed. Like, I am a 34 waist. That is what that measurement is. I know that. But if I'm buying jeans from, some brands, if they're a stretchier jean, even before they've ever been worn, I can only fit into a size 30.
Yeah.
Because they just, for some reason, have those vanity sizings on there. But at least they're rooted in some element of inch measurement. Like, maybe they can stretch all the way to a 34, but at the beginning they're a 30. Who knows? But it's not some arbitrary, numerical 0 through, whatever number sort of thing. I feel like we went in a tangent about size versus fashion and style, but necessary conversation.
I'm going to throw the question back at you. What are things that you love about the fashion industry, and maybe some things that you're just like, man, that sucks? You mentioned a few of them, including unsustainability, but is there anything else?
Yeah, so some things I love about the fashion industry is that, I mean, like you said, there are those trailblazers. There are people like Virgil Abloh, may he rest in peace, that were trailblazers and just kind of creating new things and making a name for not just themselves, but a whole style of clothing, or a whole realm of the population that kind of embodied what he represented, and that heart and soul that he poured into the clothing that he designed. And there is absolutely no shortage of brilliant designers in all walks of life and all spans of the fashion industry, whether from super, super casual like street stuff all the way up to the more high-end formal stuff. There's just a huge breadth of people that are doing amazing work there, and just opening people's eyes to fashion in a way that I think no brand could.
Yes.
Using, let's say, Heidi Slimane as the example, like going from brand to brand, or Tom Ford even, like,
love Tom Ford.
Those people who are just known by name because they went to a particular brand and fixed that brand. Didn't love the movie, but House of Gucci. Like,
oh yeah.
Tom Ford, like, being hired as the designer for Gucci, like, changed the future of that brand. That's just how that went. And there are so many designers that have that power and have that vision and can create those trends for people. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad part of the fashion industry. It doesn't even have to be, exclusively the high-end products, even down to the level of like Ralph Lauren or something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be super high-end stuff. It doesn't have to be like outrageous pricing in any way. There's just so much influence that these brands can have. Like, this past when Ralph Lauren released the spring summer lookbook for this year, I think everyone was super, super impressed, because Ralph Lauren definitely has and always has had a look,
yes,
and a style,
yes,
especially with their editorial stuff. But this year just absolutely got knocked out of the park. And I think that the fact that editorial content like that and brilliant photography and great pieces and pairing can move the general population that maybe doesn't even identify as someone who really cares about style, doesn't necessarily follow influencers or anything like that, but can see these advertisements or these, in-store graphics anywhere that just are these beacons of style.
Yeah.
There is that kind of blurry line between fashion and style, because fashion brands can showcase some killer style, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Totally.
And then what was your second question again?
I mean, you touched on this already, but maybe some things that you just I find problematic with the fashion industry.
Problematic. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it's more so just the fact that people become a slave to those trends. In the fast fashion sense, that's definitely a thing. I mean, fast fashion houses are building things to keep up with trends and sell them at a cheaper price to guarantee those sales because they're trendy. But I think that a lot of people put their self-worth, like you said, in their level of trendiness and how with the times they are. And the people who are more secure in themselves or even actively counterculture are wearing things that are more true to themselves, and they are, whether they know it or not, embodying a style as opposed to being fashionable. Heavy air quotes on fashionable, because I never hear that word and think good things. It's always a trend situation.
That's fair. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I completely agree with that. I think there's a lot of beauty, but unfortunately just some downsides that a lot of people kind of take up. Another thing that I would note, and maybe this is more in the style wheelhouse than anything else, but I think especially younger generations just gravitate towards how-to videos on TikToks and Instagram Reels. Everyone kind of thinks they're stylists now, especially the brand representatives or the influencers. And they're like, this is how you wear this piece from X company or whatever it might be. I have an issue with not the fact that they're doing it, because I've learned a ton from influencers, teaching me how to mix and match different combinations. But what I think the issue is that people tend to just flip through these videos and think, oh, they're representing this brand, therefore I should buy this piece, and that means this piece is going to look good on me exactly how they have represented it. And then said customer will go out and buy the exact piece with the exact combination and wear it and be like, ugh, like this doesn't feel like me, or it doesn't fit me like the video said it would fit me. And it was a how-to video, and so why do I feel so frustrated that doesn't fit me? And so, again, being cognizant of like the styles or the trends that we like and the body types that the people in the videos have and the general look that they're advertising versus what you like inherently. I think those are all things to really be aware of when we're scrolling through those videos of like, just because you like it on that Instagram influencer doesn't mean it might be something that looks great on you or that you even like in the first place.
And it's
just totally fine.
It's the same as seeing something on a mannequin in the store. I mean,
totally.
that impulse buy because you see it on a human figure is not a new concept. And I know neither of us are exempt from this. Like, we've bought things that absolutely do not mesh with what we're shaped like. Off the top of my head, I'm absolutely blanking. I can't think of anything in my own case, but I know that there have been things in the past that I've bought and just been like, oh, absolutely not.
Same.
And then had the freedom to return it because it's an industry and that's a thing that you can do.
Yeah. But I would say conversely is like, hey, if you are watching those videos or looking at those mannequins and you're like, I don't know how I feel about that piece, but I kind of want to try it on, then go and get it and try it on. It could look fantastic on you, and you maybe would have never otherwise given yourself credit. Like, I've had so many times, even buying prom dresses, where I was like, I hate this dress, but someone told me to put it on, and I really, really loved it on me because I didn't realize the shape would fit me so well. And it was just kind of revolutionary. Obviously, I've had many more moments like that since, but, live
I love
it
that
up.
you went to prom instead of your wedding dress.
No, I knew exactly what I wanted for my wedding dress. It took me three tries.
All right.
It was not a question. It was the prom dress because there's so many colors that really got me just all
What
kinds
color
of
did you
confused.
settle on?
I had the one that I settled on was black, and then my senior year, that was junior, senior year was like a zebra pattern.
Oh, God.
It wasn't a good look. I mean, if we had to go back and think, like, when should Leah have changed her outfit? It was senior prom.
I mean,
We're not going to go to those. I don't even think they're on the internet. And I had blonde hair. Things were different. It was a different day.
Were you wearing red shoes too?
No, but I think I had red lipstick on.
That absolutely tracks. Yikes. All right,
It was
I
in
regret
the
asking.
exploration phase, okay? Okay.
Yeah, I regret asking.
So anyways, fine. I would say like the best way to define your style and, find pieces that you really love is by trying them on and, Anthony, exploring. And part of that comes with, oh, I hate this on me. And other parts is like, this looks so hot. I'm going to buy this. And it's totally unexpected.
Definitely. I think we can pretty much cut it there. I mean, we don't. We've pretty much talked about all the stuff that we wanted to in this, and I mean there are probably ways that we could expound more and kind of go off on tangents, but I feel like there's not a direct tangent that we have a thread to right now. So if you have thoughts about the difference between fashion and style, your takes on the fashion industry, and how you might personally define style, whether it's your personal style or style as a concept, shoot us a message on Instagram at Getting Dressed Podcast. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Anthony Bolognese.
And I'm Leah Nalepa.
Bye.
See you guys soon.
See ya.